There we go. Hello, hello, hello. How are you guys? So, this isn't the first time you know the routine. Drop some yellow hearts. Let me know you are here and you are ready to get this knowledge. We are going to hold on for a few minutes so we can get some more eyes on us. I hope you guys all had an amazing Thursday thus far. It's Thursday, right? I have to always ask that. Hey, I love it when you talk back to me. I love it. It lets me know I'm not here all alone. Thank you for the yellow hearts. Thank you. So, guys, up until I want to say a couple of weeks ago, if somebody asked me what my favorite color was, I was like, black. Everything I have is black, hence the name Onyx. I just love it. I think it's powerful. I think it's beautiful. But after my journey and my transition, I realized I'm such a different person. So when somebody asked me, that's like a typical pickup line, right? So what's your favorite color? And I straight was like, I don't know. I was like, I don't know. I have to search inside. I don't know what my favorite color is now. Like this evolved woman, what is her favorite color? And so yellow just came to me. I just feel good. Yellow makes me feel good. We're just going to wait 2 more minutes. Going to invite some people to join us. You guys were talking about books. So if you know anybody who would benefit from this conversation, please invite them to join us. We're all about sharing resources. And I'm so excited about today's show. Super excited. Super, super excited. All right. So first and foremost, if you are new to Create Nation, let me just take a moment to explain exactly what Create Nation is. We are a group, a community of creatives, coaches, and content creators who come together to share resources. Create Nation was a vision that I had many months ago because I was so blessed to be around so many creative people. And I wanted to really showcase how you can take your passion, your creativity, your art, and you can monetize it, how you can make a living off of it. I am living proof that that is what you can do. And I'm connected to so many people who can do the same. One of the things that's specific about being a creative, though, is it's true. We're sensitive about our right? And sometimes our emotions get in our way. Sometimes it hinders us from reaching the goals that we set out. So I also wanted to have a place where we can support each other, where we can share resources, and we can really become a community. Create Nation has kind of blossomed into something way bigger than I initially thought it was going to be. And in the next couple of months, I'm going to be talking to you guys about that. I'm super excited. So this week is all about books. It's all about writing. One of the things that I noticed when we were doing our digital products week is so many people had questions about writing a book, writing an ebook, writing a book, anything that had to do with being an author. So I thought it would be really amazing for this week for us to talk about writing, because there are so many of you who have a desire to write. I even today in our group, when I just asked for writers to drop their links, I was again super impressed at how many amazing skilled writers we have in our group. So guys, don't be afraid to ask. A lot of times we let our ego get in the way and we are afraid to ask those questions. How did you get started? What if I come up against this obstacle? What about self-publishing? Like, ask those questions, and you'll find that a lot of people, especially in our group, are willing to share resources. And you may also find that they have a class or a program that could help you get started. So, tonight, this evening, we are talking to some fabulous writers. So I want you to go ahead and get your questions ready. All right. It does not matter if you feel like your question is something that you should already know or is common knowledge. That doesn't matter. There's no such thing as a stupid question. Ask your questions. So I'm so excited to bring on our first guest, Dr. Renair. So first of all, I asked Dr. Renair to send me her list of books, okay? Because I already knew, she had a plethora of books. But when I asked for this email, I was like, dang, I don't have that one. I am just super honored to have her be a part of this. I really want to focus on because some of Dr. Renair's books are very personal. It's her life. And I really want to talk about how do you get the strength to be so transparent? How do you find the strength to put it on paper? So I want you to drop those claps, clap, as we bring on Dr. Renair. Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
I am good. I'm good today.
Good. That is excellent. So I absolutely love you. I adore you. I mean, if we were not talking about writing, there's so many different topics that we could talk to you about in Create Nation. But I wanted to really dive into writing and specifically how you got started. Like, what possessed you to write your first book?
Well, my first book, which was Mental Silhouette, was a collection of poetry.
Mm-hmm.
And so what made me start writing, wanting to put it into a collection, was at the time I was doing a lot of spoken word, a lot of performing, and I had pieces that were better written than performed. Mm-hmm. And so I wanted to share where I was at the time, which was really like a silhouette. Like I was just in this really transformative place, but it was full of darkness. It was full of light. It was full of this. And so my friend at the time, Cheryl, was like, I really want to publish some of your work. And I was like, really? Like, you sure? And she's like, no, I really want to do that. And so that's how Mental Silhouette came to be. But I was just grateful that someone saw my work worthy enough to want to put dollars behind it, right. Because at the time I just was like, I don't have any material. I don't have anything to carry with me, and they were like, come on, let's do this. I believe in your work. And
wow.
They still to this day are a very amazing friend of mine, but I will never forget that.
Yes, that is beautiful. And Cheryl is amazing in her own right. She is a superstar, or as I like to call a lesbian. She's absolutely wonderful and is always about sharing knowledge. I know she was very instrumental with me being featured in Black Enterprise magazine, which was one of my goals. So she's amazing. And I love the idea of people pouring into other people and us pouring into each other, which I'm sure you also do, so that is absolutely amazing. One of the things that I wanted to point out is you mentioned that you were performing a lot and you wanted to have something to monetize that.
Right.
And so I want to encourage those of you who are out there who are performing poets, spoken word artists, speakers. It's always good to have something that you can sell while you're performing. If that's a collection of poetry, if that is a digital documentary of your poetry, whatever it is, definitely do it. So I wanted to jump into a specific book, and I'm not going to say I have a personal connection to this book, but I wanted to jump into Domestically Cursed. And so one of the reasons I do, I mean, it's beautifully written, it's extremely vulnerable and transparent, but I want to talk about what the journey was like putting something that was so real in your life into book form.
Well, if I can be transparent, right? Because that's what we talk about, transparency.
Yes.
It was actually the book before that allowed me, which was Pit Crew, which allowed me to be able to have that conversation because at the time my mother was alive and there were a lot of things that I was going to put into Pit Crew that she was not aware of, like being or reminded of, being sexually assaulted, being in the abusive relationship, being, dot, 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 dot. So I had to have this real conversation with her because she was excited. I was like, I would love to read your stuff. And I was like, well, we need to have a conversation because I need you to be aware of what you're getting ready to read. So it was very similar by the time I got to Domestically Cursed. Here was this relationship I had spent 3 years in and got out by the skin of my teeth, so to speak. And so for anyone that's watching, Domestically Cursed, A Story in Partnership Violence was my account in a 3-year domestically violent relationship that I was in. So there were a few things that I had to do to prepare, which was become okay with the fact that everyone was not going to have the greatest reaction. Because, when people view you through a certain kind of lens, or the people that's involved in your story, you have to be prepared for the fact that everyone is not going to believe what it is that you're putting on the paper. You also have to be prepared for the fact that you might lose some people in sharing your story, depending on their reaction to it, which may have nothing to do with you.
Right.
And the final part of that is being okay to be that exposed. Because once you put something down on paper, you cannot control the narrative from that point. Once you put it out to the public, you cannot control the narrative at that point. So people are going to read and take away from it through their lived experience.
Right.
So it takes it takes a certain amount of vulnerability and preparation. So I would suggest, having a coach or a therapist, or no pun intended, having your pit crew that can be with you in that time, because there's different. It's like when you go from dating to being engaged to being married, and everyone says it's the same thing, but it's really not.
Right.
There are different, like writing the book has its own amount of emotions. Putting it out there for even people to review it, because you're always supposed to have people review it, has its own amount of emotion. And then once you release it to the world, that's another set of emotions. So it is an emotional experience. It's different than writing fiction.
Yes.
Because this is your life, that you are the character. So
and I think that's so important. That's so important to mention, that when we're talking about writing, There is a difference between a collection of poetry and a novel, a motivational book, and then a memoir or a piece of your life. One of the things that I really love that you said is having a coach or a therapist. I am an advocate 100% for coaches, not just because I work for them, but because coaches, they have changed my life. I'm in therapy and I'm in coaching, and I think coaching is the action part. Therapy is the emotional part. And
Right.
so any project, it's really great to have a support system. But when you're going to be this transparent about something that has affected you this much, that mental preparation, I think, is so key.
And might I add, inside of your team, especially for the people that are reviewing the book with you,
Mm-hmm.
be open to hear what they have to say. Because there is a difference between being vulnerable and oversharing.
Whoa. Yes. Yes. Can you talk about that for a minute?
Oversharing. So vulnerability is the idea of sharing your truth, right?
Right.
But oversharing may entail a different set of emotions that don't necessarily need to be conveyed on the paper.
Right.
And also names.
Yeah.
Sometimes people think, well, I got to keep it exactly 100% to what happens. But that also includes other people's stories.
Right.
So there's a way to tell your story that includes another person's story without putting them at risk as well.
Right.
And putting yourself in legal risk, because there are some things around slander and being liable, around slander and libel that you have to take into consideration. So what I had to not do was I had to not write angry. So that's just for me. Somebody else may be able to write angry. That's their motivation and fuel. For me, writing angry means I might give up your address. So I had to really think about that. And to be truthful, long after it was published, right around the time when we were working on the short, that individual ended up coming back into my life. And so I gave them I said, listen, I know we weren't in each other's lives for the past 20 years, but I need you to know that I wrote a book about A, B, C, and D, and there's another project being worked on behind it. And I let them know that, even though their name was nowhere in it.
Right.
Since you came back, let me let you know what's going on. But I had to do all of that regardless how they or anyone else would have felt, because it was a story I felt I needed to tell.
Right. And I think that's really important. I stand on everybody has a story. Now tell it. You never know who it can help, who it can heal, who it can inspire. And a lot of times we find out it's ourselves through the process that we're healing. And so I can definitely see some tension between I need to tell this story, but I may be dishonoring people in my life, and some fear around protecting other people as opposed to telling your story, which is a part of your healing. Do you have any advice for getting through that part of it?
So let me be clear. When I'm talking about protecting, I'm talking about protecting the people that you are still attached to and love in telling your story. That's who I'm referring to. I'm definitely not referring to the supporting actors in the book. I'm not. I'm not talking about them. The thing that I thought about was I was very clear that some scenarios I would give people would automatically know who the individual was or the people that were surrounding at that time. Because if you were in my life at that time, you would have been exposed to that. So there's some things about that you cannot avoid. But I kept a journal. And so I wrote out the things that were very difficult for me to address. And once I wrote out the emotion of it, then I was able to go back and say, okay, so I may not want to talk about extreme details around what happened in that scenario. But I do want people to know that this scenario occurred and led up to the next scene that I'm about to give all these details about. So it's really, really, that's why it's important to have a team while you're writing stuff about your life.
That is great advice. Because I feel like some people feel like it's easy, like I'm just going to tell my story. But it is a process. It is difficult. And then once, like you said, it's on paper, then you're subjecting yourself to whatever comes with that, So I wanted to jump for a minute and speak about Pit Crew, how to survive a spiritual pit stop. So I, first of all, love the title. Can you talk to me just a little bit about what a short pocketbook is, and what was your inspiration behind bringing that to life?
So a pocketbook is a book that's it's longer than like a pamphlet, but it's shorter than what would a standard book would be. So it's really something that's designed to be read in one sitting. And so that's how a pocket book shows up. Also, it can also fit not necessarily in your pocket, but it's something that travels well.
Right. And so I think that's key, because some people who are emerging writers or aspiring writers, they feel like they have to have a 27 chapter book in order to get published, but there are so many different variations and lengths and things that you can do as a writer, especially when you're just starting out. So can you talk to me just a little bit about what inspired you to write Pit Crew?
It was this idea. I had just came to a very like a crossroads, and I had this thought. I was like, my God, today, every time, like every few years, I'm going through something, like something very transformational, and that still is a lived truth, but I handle it different today. But it was wanting to mark. I started marking the big life experiences, like someone passing away, or a loss, or separation, something. And it was like maybe every at that time, it was every 2 to 4 years. Bam, 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 bam. And so what I also realized was the same people that were with me in certain instances weren't with me in other instances. And so I wanted to talk about the team that you put around you when you go through certain things and you do stuff, because I often hear people say things like, well, that was my friend. She was supposed to know. She was supposed to have it. Or that was my partner. They were supposed to, all these supposed, right?
Right.
But if they don't have the qualities, and it's no offense to them, it doesn't make them a bad friend, it doesn't make them a bad partner or whomever, but if they don't have the qualities to support you in the task that you are trying to achieve, that's the wrong person.
Right.
So you can love them to death. I have friends I love to death, but we can't do business together.
Right.
Friends I love to death, but they can't advise me on my relationship.
Right.
So that's what I would always say. Why do we take our relationship problems to the friend that can't keep a relationship and don't particularly they're not particularly happy you have one.
Right.
That's what we do. So, so that's what became the inspiration for Pit Crew. I took, I love cars, you know, the Pixar movie by the little racing cars, and I saw this design that they had for the team, the Pit Crew, which made me start researching NASCAR and Indy 500 and all of the different type of races. And I realized that different races had different teams, depending on the size of the car and the race and this, that, and the third. And so that's where, that is exactly where Pit Crew, the inspiration for that, came up. And if it's okay, I see a comment that popped up across the screen from Robin, who I love. We go a long way back. Yes, about book doulas. I think that's I wasn't aware of the term, but I think that's it right there.
Yeah,
because they show up for you a certain type of way, and understand what goes inside of that process. And so I'm all for that.
Yeah. So basically, thank you so much, Robin. Thank you. Book doulas are people who support others in birthing the book. Often they are coaches, or as Renair talks about in Pit Crew, they may be folks who feed you while you are writing. They may be people who help you process the emotional work. And I have a couple of people who up here who are like, this is dope. I need a book doula. Yes. It makes so much sense. It really does. Yes, thank you, Robin, for that. That is absolutely.
Yeah, I need a book doula right now. So because I'm working on a new project. So Robin, know that I'm being your box. Like, can you refer me, or are you one? You know, I need to know this because I'm working on a new project.
Yeah. So before I jump to our next author, and I would really love for you to stay on, I wanted to ask you about your process. So when you get an inspiration or an idea for a book, walk me through your steps.
So when I get an idea for a book, and it varies on the book, Domestically Cursed kind of just poured out on like over a 2-week period, whereas Pit Crew, I did an outline. So I did an outline of what I wanted the book to be about. So for instance, I had part 1, I wanted it to be about the races and life tracks, and part 2 was to be about the team. So it was like part 1 was about you, and part 2 was about, you know, external. And so then I went and made bullet points under each main header, what I wanted to talk about. And so in doing that, it allowed me to recognize that I wanted each of the roles to have their own chapter. And so that was my process for that book. And it was also my process for Come With Me Love. Come With Me Love is a couple's devotional. And so I had to do the same thing because there were sections that needed to be addressed, you know, daily for 21 days. I had to have an outline. And so I wrote what I wanted them to do on that day. And then I went back and filled in the activity, the prayer, the after conversation. So I had to have an outline, or I would have gotten lost and been all over the place.
Right. I think outlines are so important. And sometimes we fight it like, I don't want to do the extra work. I just want to write. But when you have an outline, much like, you know, I really love business plans, it really helps to guide the process. So I definitely encourage those of you who are in the beginning stages to write an outline, to get it out. All right. Well, Dr. Renair, I mean, You know, you're just so amazing.
Well, I
You can.
thank you for having me.
Oh, you are welcome. I'm probably gonna have you on a couple more times because there's a
Don't
lot we
make the
can.
people tired of me.
Let them be tired. I am definitely going to bring you back on towards the end of the show so we can ask you questions. And we want to find out about where to get in contact with you and what you are doing. So if you stick around, that would be amazing.
Absolutely.
Thank you. All right, guys. So Dr. Renair is absolutely amazing. She dropped some gems there. And we are so grateful here at Create Nation to have her. If you have any questions for her, please get them ready because we are going to ask them at the end of the show. I just wanted to also finish what Robin was saying because this idea of a book doula is so amazing. She says book doulas are a helpful part of self-care in this process. Choose one who can push you but also support you. Have clarity of what your needs are before you enter the process. And then she continues to say that hers cooked for her, did laundry, fed her, and kept her on track. And that she has been a doula for others while they wrote their dissertation or thesis. Woo, child. Usually writers hire them when they are close to finishing a project or when they're on a roll with their work. Thank you for that, Robin. That was absolutely priceless information. Woo. Okay, so next, we have the Royce Hall joining us. Royce is an amazing creative overall. I mean, whether it's music, instruments, poetry, screenwriting, performance, he is amazing. One of the reasons why I wanted to bring him on is because he has mastered the idea of putting your poetry into collections, making books based off of your creative art. And we have several poets in Create Nation. I'm connected to several poets who are struggling in that area. So please drop some hand claps in the comments as I bring on Royce. Hello, sir. How are you?
I'm wonderful. How are you?
I am excellent. Happy Thursday.
Same to you.
So just like Dr. Renair, I could talk to you about a million different things because you are truly multifaceted. But I wanted to really talk about your books. And first and foremost, I want to ask you, what inspired you to take your work from the notebook, from the stage, and put it into a book?
Well, let's see. The first book which was Rioting at Dawn. That was more so a collection of social justice poetry that I wrote between a particular period. I believe I started writing around the time that Trayvon Martin was murdered. And I believe I finished maybe around the time that Freddie Gray was murdered. So all of those pieces pretty much collected themselves. And then the final release of everything that I felt, as well as what communities was feeling as well, it was time to release it.
Wow. So can I ask you this? How do you feel having did that collection years ago and it's still being so relevant today?
On one hand, it feels it's deeply saddening on one hand, because currently I really don't feel connected to writing poetry that relates to social justice, that relates to our experiences right now as it relates to Blackness. I've been expressing those feelings in other ways, sketching, just different outlets. But that particular one, I feel like it's still very relevant. Unfortunately, definitely still relevant. And my biggest desire for that book is, or those poems, is for them to also give us needed strength, as well as enlightenment, as well as anyone who touches that book needed enlightenment. Because, and then there's also other poems in there that are deal with self-care, self-exploration, and also connected to social justice. So, because that book is still connected, or is connected to where we are now, it's something I would definitely recommend.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. So can you walk me through, or actually before I get to that question, did at any point while you were preparing to put this collection, your first collection out, did you ever think like, who is going to read this? Who wants to read this? You know, who is going to want to hear my work? Did you ever have those thoughts? And if you did, how did you move past them?
Yes and no. On a large scale, I knew who I wanted to target. I knew who I wanted to connect with. The other side of that is, after it was released, I didn't know the extent or the length to which it will reach people. So I did have an idea of who I wanted to touch, and because there's a lot of information regarding self-awareness in there as well, I wanted people to have conversations that they weren't having, or that they needed to have.
Wow. Okay, so talk to me about your book after that.
Poetics, that one, Poetics came about. I joined a Facebook group that was solely about writing 6-word poetry, and it's like it's pretty much like writing a flash novel. So you fit as much into these 6 words as you can to tell a story or create an affirmation. And so before I knew it, I had all of these 6-word stories or poems just written. And some of them became affirmations, some of them became flash novels, if you will. So that one is solely about 6-word poetry, and each poem has a blank page. So whatever you're inspired to create, or whatever thoughts you have next to that poem, you can write. And it's also interactive aside from that, because you finish actually creating the title, and the reader also names each poem.
Wow. I mean, I'm all for everything interactive. That's something that not only do I love, but I think is really different and really interesting. So, like, how did you come up with that concept?
Pretty much after having so many written, I just decided it's something that I want to do. And the first book that I did, Rioting at Dawn, a coworker of mine at the time, he said that he felt like there was so much he was inspired to do while reading that book. And so he hadn't painted in a long time. And after reading the book, started to paint again based on what he was inspired to do. So I figured, well, let me put something in here where people can actually express themselves while reading the poetry, and then also engage them where, you know, instead of me giving it a title, you give it a title, because you could read it and you could think, okay, I want to name it XYZ, or I feel this should have been called XYZ. And then somebody else can read it and say, well, this should have been ABC. So I wanted people to actually feel connected to the book and connected to what I created, and then we pretty much finish it together.
Wow, that is amazing. So if you could, like I said, we have a lot of performing poets. We have a lot of, poets who are a part of Create Nation. Could you give them some advice or encouragement when it comes to publishing their work and collections of their work?
The first thing I would say is, if you have an idea, if you have something that's weighing on you, something that you would like to share, go ahead and prepare yourself to do so, without allowing any outside influence that may be discouraging, that may change your mind to do otherwise. Go ahead and actually affirm with yourself that this is what I want to do. This is what I want to share with the world. After that, if you feel inclined, you can, if you have a lot of poems that may be about social justice, or maybe about, let's say, I don't know, family, love. You can decide, well, do I want to put these in separate books or do I want to put these in one book? How do I want this to flow? What do I want it to flow like, look like? And the great thing about self-publishing, but the great thing about self-publishing specifically is you create your product or you create your project. However you want to tell your story, be it poetry, whatever it may be, you create that. So
Right.
that would be the next thing I would say is decide how you want to tell your story, share your art. From there, uh, gathering everything that you want to be in it. So if you decide I want all of these love poems or I want love, social justice, and self-awareness, uh, do I want to do a chapter per set or do I want to just kind of let it blend in together?
Right.
And the great thing about self-publishing nowadays is that you have platforms such as Kindle Direct Publishing that make it really simple. So if you have 10 book concepts, you can create a file for each of those books. You can title them, you can come back and edit them. And it's also a great tool because as you release your projects, you know, you have like a checklist. So each book is, you know, as you release it, you see that you've met your goal.
Right.
So I would say definitely set up an account with Kindle Direct Publishing and take your time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Don't be so uh, focused on releasing the project, but be focused on connecting and sharing something.
Yes.
Yeah,
Roy. That is wisdom right there.
yeah. So those would be the main things aside from the technical aspect.
Yeah.
It's really important to be. One thing I learned was being gentle with myself during the process.
Uh-huh.
Because you can get caught up in, okay, well, I want to finish this book by April 1st and February 25th is here and you're stressing. You
Right.
know, just give yourself time to naturally produce what you want to release because if you put weight on yourself during the process, the reader can feel it. It's not going to feel organic. So you definitely want to be gentle as you create and also give yourself space to feel because as you create each poem or experience that you share, you're definitely reconnecting to that experience. And sometimes it can be a visceral response you may not necessarily be ready for because you're solely focused on I'm releasing a book, but
Right.
also be prepared for the possible emotional response that you may have or spiritual response you may have and allow yourself time to feel those different emotions as they come to you.
Wise, wise, wise words, Roy. So, we spoke just briefly about self-publishing and KDP. Those of you who are in Create Nation, I'm going to be posting some tutorials about how to use KDP, how to self-publish that way. My question for you, Royce, because the person who I'm speaking to next, it's published, has gone through publishing houses. Is that something that you aspire to do, or are you strictly like, I want to self-publish my work?
Right now, I'm focused on self-publishing, but in the future, definitely would love to have the right publishing deal, one that's right for me, that allows me flexibility too as a writer because I'm not locked into one particular genre. So it definitely will have to be something that's tailored for me, but in the future, for sure. But right now, I'm enjoying the self-publishing process. It's something about it for me is a different type of connection.
Yeah, definitely. I know a couple of authors who feel the same way. Even in my industry in film, I know some fellow filmmakers who are like, I'm going to be independent. I'm not going to go mainstream. So there's definitely lots of respect for each side of the coin. If you could, before I bring on our next author, and I would love for you to stick around so we can find out about what you're doing next. If you could give our poets the main reason why you feel it's important to do a collection of poetry.
The main reason, let's see. I would say, let's see, there's so many.
Yeah.
I would say, let's see, connection to community as well as connection to self. Because poetry has a way of evoking certain energies. It has a way of allowing you a different way of thinking as you read, a different way of processing, a different way of dissecting what you read. So oftentimes, sometimes the poet is forgotten about, but the poet is necessary. The poet is still very necessary. So I would say connecting to community and engagement. And because not every writer may necessarily create a novel, but the poems that you create are just as important and just as necessary as that novel. So if you have poems that you're sitting on, 9 times out of 10, if you feel compelled or you're inspired to do something with them, even if you don't necessarily know what, you should definitely listen to that gut feeling and follow through. And go ahead and release it. It may be scary because you're like, oh well, who's gonna read my book? The right person will read your book.
Absolutely. I say that all the time. Your tribe will find you, but they're only going to find you if you put the work out. Definitely. I love it. I feel like your art is your activism. I feel like you truly, you're intentional about connecting with the audience. And I think that is just so important, especially in this time where we feel disconnected.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I absolutely, first of all, thank you so much for joining me. Like I said, I hope you stick around so I can ask you a few more questions at the end. You guys, I put Royce's link in the comments. So if you want to purchase any books or merchandise, please do. And those poets out there, I hope that you really heard what he said. Connect, write, and don't think about who is going to purchase it. Thank you, Royce.
And one thing I want to add is with self-publishing, one thing that I do like about it, in addition to just having total power with my art, is that going through KDP, once your project is approved and released, you're automatically distributed to your Amazon platforms, your Barnes and Noble after a certain time, Books A Million. So all of that particular technical work, it's automatically done for you.
Wow. And that's the beautiful thing about today, right? Like years ago, we wouldn't have access to this. But today you can self-publish and you can be on Amazon, make it to Barnes and Nobles, and do all of that stuff. So they're really the only thing stopping any of you from being any one of the guests I have on today is just making the choice and doing it.
Absolutely.
Making the choice and doing it. Thank you so much, Royce. I'll see you in a few minutes.
For sure.
So I hope that you guys out there who are poets, I hope that you are really encouraged tonight to get that collection out there. So now I have one more guest. He is, I want to say super famous, but he is an accomplished author. I cannot even begin to name all of his books. One of the things that is really significant about J.M. Benjamin is his marketing skills and his marketing tactics. So I'm super excited and honored to have Mr. J.M. on. Hello, sir. How are you?
Hey, what's up, lady? What's going on?
Thank you so much for joining us. I love your shirt.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me. Your phone is, well, the the broadcast is skipping. I was listening to the interview with the brother, and it skipped the whole way. I don't know if it's the broadcast or if it's my phone.
Oh, yeah, you're a little. I can hear you. You're a little fuzzy, but I can hear you. You guys, let me know in the comments if you can hear JM. So, sir, first of all, you have mastered the concept of connecting with your audience and selling out these books. Can you first, before we even get into writing, can you talk to us about the marketing aspect and what you do to get your books out there?
Well, one, I'm going to travel back and just give like a quick history of who I am as an author, how I became an author, and what type of author I am today.
Yes.
So I was signed. So in 2005, I was signed to a small independent publishing house, the opposite of a major traditional publishing house. So my first book came out. I didn't typically when you sign to a small label, there's generally no advances or something small, like I said, if any, and you receive royalties again, sometimes lowest to the maximum, which is still not a large amount based on the wholesale price of what the publisher sells the books to distributors and bookstores and consumer things of that nature. So, um, dealing with that and coming from where I came from, I grew up in the streets. I've always dealt with the product. So that's what this is about, dealing with which makes me the author that I am today, the businessman that I am today, an entrepreneur, knowing what the real product is. I knew a long time ago that I was the product. So, same different product when it comes to literary. So when I was signed to the publishing house, the only way that I could really make money is if I went on tour, made sure the bookstore sold a substantial amount or sold them out so that they could reorder from their distributors and distributors reorder from the publisher. So once I realized the formula, I said I have to, join that arena so that I could be the puppet master of both ends. So once I fulfilled my contract from the small publishing house, I had already learned the business. It's very important for any aspiring writers or even the authors that were on this broadcast. Very important that you learn the business, understand the difference between self-publishing and print on demand. Very, I'll touch on that down the line. But anyway, I realized that um, that was the system. Toured. I used to do like over 2+ book signings on tour throughout the course of a year, sometime even more. Because ultimately my royalty check would reflect on my work ethics. Now, in addition to that, whether a major publishing house or independent publishing house, um, they offer the authors an opportunity to purchase at a particular cost, at a wholesale cost. So that's the world I come from. I know that game.
Right.
Buy it for a low cost, sell it to a different audience, market, consumer, and keep flipping it and flipping it. So my cost was 50% off of the retail price. But my publisher never factored in that I was a guy that would come and say, "Hey, look, if I bought 1,000 at one time, then what would be my number?" And that started the beginning of. So within the first 30 days, I was buying 1,000 copies from my publisher at $6 a book. I had gotten a $15 cut, a point and a half. Again, when I come from, and was able to position myself to now sell to other outlets. I couldn't distribute the way the publisher was, but I was able to do some distribution for myself.
Right.
So thereafter, it enabled me to build contacts to launch my own pub company. And a year after my contract, I launched my own publishing house. I started self-publishing as an author because it's a difference. Being a self-published author and having an independent publishing company.
Right.
There's a difference. When you're just an author, you're only reliable for self. When you have a self-publishing company, you're reliable on other parties, maintaining checks and balances of royalty statements and inventory, so on and so forth. Again, just taking it to the publishing aspect of things, I began to market myself, brand myself. And why I became adamant about that was because in the genre of urban fiction that I write, when we had Barnes and Noble, Porters, Waldens, in addition to Barnes and Nobles and Walmart and all of the other channels of the genre, when I was doing book signings, the managers would come and say, "Do you need anything? Do you want anything to eat? Oh, wow, you're so interactive with the people. Like, wow, you have a nice fragrance on. Like, wow,
Right.
that's a nice outfit. That's a nice shirt." So I realized that they were accustomed to people in my genre coming in presentable. They were in demand. I didn't want anything. I never sat down at book signings. The only thing I did was drink water and grind, because I come from the I don't grind, I eat. And that's the mentality that I continue to have. So this is a part of my brand and my market. When you think of the name J.M. Benjamin, you think of hustler, grinder.
Yes.
Moves product, like a mover. So, but everything that I made mention of is a conglomerate of who J.M. Benjamin is, not only as an owner, but as as a man, as an individual. Period. I pride myself on quality over quantity, etiquettes and particular work ethics, no matter personal or professional. That's the problem. People buy into me. They buy me. J.M. Benjamin, it's of quality. It doesn't matter if it's a Black Matter tee or watch out for the big girls or ride or die chick or hire me to come to school. The product is always the same. J.M. Benjamin product. You see what I'm saying? So if it makes any sense to you. So that is my marketing strategy. If you go onto my social media, book will be secondary to me posting my thoughts, my feelings, my views. So people, my DMs are flooded with like, wow, I needed that this morning, or I feel the same way, or wow, I feel energy. So that's what they buy, something real and raw, a quality product.
Yeah, absolutely. In every marketing class I've ever taken, every branding class, they say the exact same thing. People buy people. They don't buy products. So whether you're selling books today or t-shirts, or you jump into something new a month from now, you've already cultivated your audience and built that trust. And I can definitely say your brand is all about the grind, is all about the work, and is all about connection. You have mastered that. So when we are reading a J.M. Benjamin book, it feels like we have a piece of you. It doesn't just feel like we got some, book off the shelf. It's like, oh, we have a piece of you, and this is your work. Yes. So I wanted to speak to you about just the process of writing a novel. First of all, if you could share with us what your genre is, and then how do you go about that process of I have this concept, and now I have a 600-page book.
Okay, so for me, I don't have like the backdrop story of when I was 8 years old or 6 years old. I always knew I wanted to be a writer. It's not my story. Like,
Uh-huh.
I would have never thought that I would be an SS selling author, an award-winning author, Black Expression. I would have never thought those things. I had a great education. I'm sharing the history of my education and the evolution of my writing for those who may become discouraged if not that prolific or they're not the speller or punctuation. Um, for me, I always was able to tell a dope story and captivate an audience.
Mm.
Even when I was in the streets, like I would play to like events and functions during the summertime, and guys would stay around the neighborhood, doing whatever they were doing, and I would come back and share with them what they missed, and the picture would be so vivid that you know they they would anticipate going to the function following year.
Uh-huh.
When I did a substantial amount of time in prison when I was incarcerated for dudes that I had came across that had been locked away. Shared stories with them about the streets, things of that nature, things that I had did. You again, the audience hanging on to my every word, wanting more. It's the same way how my writing came about. I went from journaling to just expressing myself, to manuscripts, 400 plus page manuscripts in
Wow.
regards to writing pages. And so I never got writer's block because I was not a writer. I didn't know how to write. So, when you don't have any restrictions
Oh,
and you
yes.
just free with it,
Yes.
my best writing was earlier on in my career before the politics of the
Mm-hmm.
business of living,
Mm-hmm.
and so what I did was, because later on I took a creative writing class after I had already had the novels out, chain stores and things of that nature,
Mm-hmm.
just to see if what God blessed me with was what people have to pay tens of and hundreds of thousands to learn in school,
Right.
and not to knock school. Salute to all of my my academic scholars and things of that nature. But I'm me coming from where I came from.
Mm-hmm.
I was blessed with a gift, and you wanna you the more you learn, the more you know, the better quality it becomes.
Right.
So, one, I learned methods, an outline method. I've tried the outline where you number 1 through 50, and it
Mm-hmm.
starts out number one, girl, number two, girl falls in love with boy, number
Uh-huh.
three, drama with boy and girl, and then rearrange it like and put it together like a puzzle.
Mm-hmm.
I've done that. I've sat down, done the bio on my characters to
Mm-hmm.
do character development.
Mm-hmm.
Giving them a name, a face, a description, a presence. I've done storyline development where I've taken notes and things of that nature. But for the most part, a J.M. Benjamin novel is pent like a Jay-Z album. I just go in the booth, I just pen it, I lay it down, and I don't look back. The next
Mm-hmm.
person that sees it after I pen it is the editor.
Mm-hmm.
And the
Mm-hmm.
editor, we're talking about editor, I'm number one publishing house in the country, which is Kensington, under
Uh-huh.
Carl Weber in their
Mm-hmm.
urban division.
Uh-huh.
And the editor is like, man, this is so good, I don't even want to touch it.
Uh-huh.
So, and that didn't come up in any classroom or any teacher that came from up above.
Yeah.
With that being said, uh, I encourage people. This is when I speak to people or do a workshop or a conference.
Mm-hmm.
This is how I break it down, because they say, "Jay, I'm on the streets. I never went to jail. I don't, I'm a 9 to 5, or I'm a mother,
Right.
single. I don't have that time." Okay, so this is what I give them. we're all afforded the same hours in a day, 24 of them. There's no getting around that.
Yes.
If you factor in your rest, your job, parenting, some leisure time, there is still going to be some residue of hours, maybe 2 to 3 in your life, where you can take one of those hours and commit to writing one page on January 1st, 2021. Start one page. And in January 22, you'll have 365 pages. So imagine if you get in your bag and in your zone and you write 2 pages a day, then you've written a book in 6 months, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
People automatically look like, oh, I can't write 300 pages. Well, you might write it in 30, 60, 90 days like I can, but you can write it. And you
Right.
do have the time in your life. So it's about discipline, conditioning, commitment, and all of those things I have aligned.
You are speaking truth, because discipline, commitment, and no excuses in any area is what's going to make you successful. But a lot of times I meet writers who are like, or aspiring authors who are like, I just can't write, or I don't have enough time. And I'm like, do it. Just do it.
Indeed. And I want to say this about characters.
Yes.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, because, I'm assuming that aspiring writers, or even people who are not aspiring writers, but just feel they got one inside of them.
Yeah.
One, you have to take the gloves off. You have to take the gloves off and know, especially if you're writing fiction, which is your story, you have to be comfortable and confident and okay with offending someone. Someone's going to get offended by your writing. Two, you take the gloves off and you write. If you don't feel any pain, if it doesn't, make your heart skip a beat, cause emotion, tear you up. If you don't find yourself talk to your characters, because characters will, you may burn them, but they will grow up in the blink before you got it. You got a whole series. But with that being said, become one with your writing. It's very important. If you want to write as this is a very important statement that I'll share. Write as a reader and not as a writer. If you write as a reader, put all of the ingredients that an avid reader wants into your story. The who, when, where, and why. You will answer for the reader, write as a reader and not as a writer.
Yes, write as a reader, not a writer. I think that is amazing advice. So JM, I could talk to you forever about all that you have done, all that you're doing, your filmmaking, your church, everything. You are just an overall mogul, and I'm just really, really honored that you came to speak to us specifically about writing. And I think that you are encouraging those out there who are like, I don't have the education, I don't have, the structure, but I can tell a good story, to go ahead and tell that story. And coming from someone who is a part of a huge publishing house. So do you also still have your independent publishing company?
Yes. Okay. So with that goes back to learning the business.
Right.
Just if you're familiar with the music industry, if you can produce the product, then you can sign multiple deals and things of that nature. With that being said, one, typically this is the process. You need a literary agent to broker the deal because they don't accept unsolicited work. So that's one. Broker the 6-figure deal with this publishing house because why? I had already built a 6-figure independent publishing house. So in the beginning, they tried to lowball me. Like, we were thinking, like, they showed me some numbers. I said, that's impossible. Like, not when I could make that in one book. And they like, well, numbers. Everything is a number. And like we track the numbers, and the numbers weren't really adding up to where as though we always times it by 10. Okay, you times it by 10. Well, that's why I bought this folder with my print runs, because you can't deny this. So I had print runs to where as though I had print over 80,000 books with my own money. I don't care if I threw in the river. 80,000 books were purchased.
Right.
So there's no getting around that. So again, when you know the business, you know what you can do, like creative brokering that, like don't go down a J.M. Benjamin book. I'm from the streets. I'm the streets. This is street lit. They need to get the streets from me. When a joker that busts his hammer read about a gun going off in a book, he needs to know I described the 5 pounds of pressure properly. The gun didn't turn sideways. I didn't stick pants because it's still smoking. It'll burn me. He needs to know that I ain't just wipe it off with a rag. That don't work. That's only in the movies. That you gotta bleach that to get your prints off. So that's who J.M. Benjamin is when it comes to that. My non-fiction motivation and my urban fiction coincide because I write reality fiction. It may not be your story, but it's someone's story.
Right.
This is what I write. I write for the people.
Right. Wow. Well, I just adore you. I think you are amazing. And once again, I'm so grateful. I am going to bring on our other guest because I want us to just have some final questions. And then I want to talk about our giveaways and how everyone can get in contact with you all. So I'm going to bring in Dr. Renair. Hi. And also Royce. Okay, Royce is there, but Royce will be back. Let me take Royce off until he's back. So those of you who are listening, if you have any questions that we have not answered yet, please do not hesitate to ask them. But what I love, first of all, is that all three of you, okay, here goes Royce. All three of you are coming from such a different vantage point. I think you all represent so many people in Create Nation. So again, I just want to say thank you, thank you, thank you. I really hope that this touches somebody and inspires them. So I wanted to know, first of all, what you're working on next, and we'll start with you, Dr. Renair, and how can we get in contact with you? So what are you working on next?
Right now, I am continuing to work with my practice, Pink Love Wellness. And so I am doing things like the Pink Love Purveyor, where we spotlight people sharing good deeds across the world. I'm also working on a new book around pastoral care and the LGBTQ believer of color. And if you want to find out more about me, you can always visit me. I'm Renair Amin everywhere. And also pinklovewellness.com.
So Renair Amin everywhere. I'm going to put that in the comments, guys. And pinklove.com, you said?
Pinklovewellness.com.
Pinklovewellness.com. Dr. Renair, did you have a question for either one of our guests, or a comment, or a final statement?
I actually have a comment. First of all, I love Royce, so I just want to give some love to Royce and Sir JM. You dropped a lot of nuggets there, especially around marketing. That I'm going to look for you and come find you, so I can be connected to you. And Onyx, just thank you for allowing me to be part of the conversation. I greatly appreciate it. And I was honored to be part of this conversation with such amazing authors and artists. It was such a blessing. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. JM, I don't know if you heard Dr. Renair. I don't know if you were frozen, but she said she's definitely coming. She's definitely coming after you to get some knowledge, some marketing knowledge. He is the marketing king. So, sir, what are you working on?
See, right now I'm finishing my third book, which is hashtags healing. Well, actually, Hennessy hashtags and healing.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm really excited about that. Waiting for the design to come back to me, hopefully this weekend. Finishing my third script, which I'm really excited about. So,
scripts?
Absolutely.
Very awesome.
And recording new music.
Nice. Yes, yes. You guys, I told you I could talk to Royce and we could talk about so many different things, just like Dr. Renair and JM, but Royce is an amazing artist as well. So that's very exciting to hear that you have some music coming. Where can we find you at?
Of course, social media, all platforms, Royce Hall, Instagram and Twitter. I am Royce Hall. Website, theroycehallexperience.com. Spotify, Pandora, all your platforms.
All. That is wonderful. All right, JM, I don't know if you're frozen. Oh, he just left. Let's see if he pops back on. Royce, did you have any comments or questions for anybody that we had on the show?
No questions. I'm happy to share space with, wonderful artists and creatives, and I always enjoy moments like this. So it's really good to connect with everyone and just be a part of the conversation.
Yes, yes. I think one of the things that I love about you is it always comes back to that connection. Like you're always about connecting and art being a vehicle to connect. So I definitely appreciate that. So James is having some connection problems. However, I'm going to drop his information in Create Nation. If you guys have any questions, do not hesitate to reach out to him. He is everything J.M. Benjamin on social media. He's an Essence best-selling author. And I don't usually like urban lit, but let me tell you, I read his books and like it's so real. Like I know these characters, I know these people. So we are going to do a giveaway. Those of you who are still on, I am going to be giving away a book by Dr. Renair. I'm going to be giving away a book by Royce Hall and some merchandise because he has some merchandise. And I am also going to be giving away a book and a t-shirt from J.M. Benjamin. He has t-shirts that say Black Lives Matter, that say, I'm not going to say this word, but F prison, stuff like that. And I am going to show you how you can win them in our group. Guys, I am so grateful. Thank you for sharing your knowledge. Thank you for sharing your time, talent, and energy with me for 1 hour and 17 minutes. Please make sure you go into our group and you drop your links to your books and to your websites. Allow us to support you. Allow us to show you love.
Absolutely. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, and Create Nation, as we begin to wrap this up, I want to let you know that tomorrow I am interviewing 2 authors who have self-help, inspiration, and motivational books. One of our authors has written 8 books and sold over 450,000 copies. So if you are a coach, if you are a keeper of knowledge and you want to learn how to put that into a book, please come back tomorrow, Juneteenth, 7:30, and hear all about what it takes to do that type of work and that genre. Thank you guys for joining me. I hope that this was a beneficial conversation for you. You know that my main goal is to share resources, to inspire, to empower, and to help you live your best life ever. If you are not a part of Create Nation Facebook group, go ahead and join, please. If you have any questions or if you're interested in being featured on one of our live shows, don't hesitate to inbox me. Thank you so much, guys. I am super pleased with tonight's show. Thank you. Happy Thursday. It's 8:50. I'm old, so it's almost my bedtime. I'll be going to sleep. But for the rest of you guys who are going to be up, working, creating, please enjoy. Thank you so much. Bye-bye, guys.